So this study is studying domestic violence victimization, and the proposed study is studying risk factors in males. So this is the title of my proposed study, not the title of the previous literature review that was done. And my name is Maham Hussein, and this is from Mercer University, and the class is the Capstone Research Project. So just to give you a preview of what's going on, today we're going to be going over three things. So number one, we're going to be learning about what previous literature has to say about gun violence. This is things like who are perpetrators of gun violence, what characteristics or qualities might these perpetrators reflect. This is also things such as risk factors for perpetrators, but also risk factors for female victims. So the proposed study is studying gun violence with females as the focus of interest. The second thing we're going to be learning about today is about how intimate partner violence and domestic violence intertwines with gun violence. And so intimate partner violence and domestic violence are pretty much the same thing, but domestic violence is on a more general scale. Intimate partner violence typically is a little bit more severe. So where domestic violence might be something like a punch or a slap, intimate partner violence is an intimate scenario. So it could be something like sexual violence. And number three, we're going to be informed the details of a proposed study based on the previous literature regarding gun violence. And that proposed study, like I told you, is about risk factors in males. So just a fun fact, did you know that out of about 10,000 married female murders from 2016 to 2017, 55% of them were intimate partner-related violence? And so what this is indicating to us is that intimate partner-related violence is on a much larger scale than we think. If you think about all the female murders that happened, over half of them were committed by a partner or by an ex-partner. And so that is very concerning, and so that's kind of why we're focusing on this today. So to operationally define some new or relevant terms that we're going to see a couple times throughout both the literature review and the proposed study, number one, victimization of domestic violence. And so when I say victimization of domestic violence, this is what I mean. I mean violence, abuse, or intimidation that happens between people who are or have been in some type of romantic relationship. This could be a spouse, an ex-spouse, a dating partner, an ex-dating partner, or maybe even somebody that wasn't a dating partner, but they were romantically or sexually involved in some way. Number two, temperament. So when I say temperament or a high level of temperament refers to a high level of sensitivity in reference to that person's emotional responses or reactions. And as you'll see later on, there are specific questionnaires that study temperament and self-esteem as well. So moving on to self-esteem. Self-esteem in this study is what an individual's unconscious deems to be true about how worthy, valuable, or lovable you are. All right, so just looking at this problem, let's talk about how this problem is different from intimate partner violence. And so like I told you before, intimate partner violence is a more general term. Among intimate partner violence perpetration, violence with weapons is pretty common. And so when researching this topic, I found a lot of violence regarding knives and guns, but guns were more common. And we are focusing on gun violence as a specific subsection of intimate partner violence. So this problem is not completely separate or different from intimate partner violence, but it's like a more specific subsection of it. So what does previous literature study? So previous literature studies violence in dating relationships versus marital relationships. It goes over some statistics about both violence in dating relationships and marital relationships that I will tell you about later. And it also goes over the severity of violence. So was it something like a punch or a slap, or was it like a severe beating, or was there actually a weapon used? It also goes over the weapons that were used, like I told you, knives, guns, things like that. It goes over types of abuse. Some examples of types of abuse could be emotional abuse, physical abuse, financial abuse, things like that, or how these types of abuses intertwine. So somebody who perpetrates financial abuse might also perpetrate physical abuse. Previous literature also studies risk factors for victimization and perpetration. So what makes it more likely for somebody to perpetrate gun violence, and what makes it likely for somebody to be a victim of gun violence? And it goes over traditional masculinity. So how do these traditional ideals kind of show through their behavior? So who is at risk for gun violence perpetration? Looking at the previous research, we found that married women are more likely to get shot than unmarried women. Women are more likely to get shot by men versus men shooting women. Women who are from lower socioeconomic classes are higher at risk for gun violence perpetration, and women with mental illnesses, or just to go off of that, not just mental illnesses, but women with self-esteem issues or body image issues, those people are also at a higher risk for gun violence perpetration. And if you look at the studies, we found that is because those women with self-esteem issues and things like that are more likely to stay. They're less likely to ask for help. And who are perpetrators of gun violence? Men are more likely to be perpetrators of violence, like we just talked about. Men with ideals, morals, or beliefs that reflect traditional masculinity. Men with higher levels of general violence. And men who have abused their wives before. How might gun violence be the result of some conflict? So the previous literature found that gun violence is typically a result of an ongoing dispute rather than a single argument. It might be thought that maybe a male with some mental illnesses or some temperament issues or anger issues might just get so mad during one argument and just end up shooting his wife. But that is less likely to happen. Usually it is something over maybe a family issue, a custody battle, infidelity, or relationship or sexual dissatisfaction. And so these issues such as custody battles, infidelity, these are things that can go over years. And so typically it's some built up tension that causes them to premeditate a murder. Risk factors for female victims. And so the previous literature found a few risk factors. This is just a couple. Some risk factors are being in constant states of fear for their own well-being or for their child, anxiety, levels of depression, like we talked about, a low self-worth or self-esteem, and also eating disorders. We also have some risk factors for male perpetrators, and this would be more along the lines of mental illness. So we have bipolar disorder, anxiety, depression, and histories of abuse. So the current study here, the purpose is to explore men who are victims of domestic violence, and we're trying to figure out, do the same risk factors that just apply to women apply to them? So the proposed study is focusing specifically on two risk factors, and that is temperament issues and low self-esteem. The current study, we have one research question going along with one hypothesis. So the research question is, do temperament issues and a low self-esteem increase the risk for men to be victims of domestic violence? And my hypothesis is yes. I definitely believe that it is reasonable to predict that both of those things, temperament issues and a low self-esteem, cause men to be more prone to domestic violence in their intimate partner relationships. As for the methods, first, we will go over participants. And so for this study, 200 male adults between the ages of 20 to 50 years old will be recruited through LinkedIn and Facebook. These people may be from any race or ethnicity. The study does not discriminate. And as compensation for their time, all the participants will be eligible to win a $150 e-gift card at the end of the study. And the winner of this will be chosen at random, and it will be emailed to them. For measures or materials, the three following questionnaires will be used. Number one, we have the structure of temperament questionnaire. We have the Rosenberg self-esteem scale to measure self-esteem. And then number three, we have measuring intimate partner violence, victimization, and perpetration. Each questionnaire will take up to 25 minutes to complete, equaling about an hour in total. For the procedure, the recruitment, like I said, will occur through LinkedIn and Facebook. The online survey will ask 3 questions to verify eligibility. The first question is, what is your gender? Obviously, they have to be male. What is your age? They need to be between the ages of 20 to 50. And are you or have you ever been victim to domestic violence? And the answer to that needs to be yes. If they have the proper answers, then eligible participants will provide their personal information, like their name and email, and they will be emailed an informed consent page to sign. At the end of the study, participants will be debriefed. For design, a between subjects design will test this hypothesis. The first independent variable, temperament, like I said before, is a high level of sensitivity in their emotional responses or reactions. The second independent variable, which is self-esteem, as I said before, is what a person believes to be true about how worthy, valuable, and lovable they are. And the dependent variable is victimization of domestic violence. And that refers to violence, abuse, or intimidation that might be between anybody who is or has been in a romantic relationship. For the discussion, we found that temperament issues and low self-esteem are positively correlated with males being prone to domestic violence in their intimate partner relationships. And the implications of this research can be used to predict and prevent violence towards males and identify factors that make males more prone to domestic violence. For any questions or concerns, you can contact me. My email is 11003583@live.mercer.edu. Please allow up to 48 hours for a response, and thank you so much for listening.